We've got an interesting little video for you today, and I may have made a little bit of a mistake. Number one is setting up my camera this way, and number two, what we need to address is I've recognized a measuring mistake that has thrown off the symmetry from the center. I had one of these strips accidentally cut it too wide, and I thought maybe I made a mistake in cutting, but upon closer investigation, hold on one second. Okay, so that's number. So on closer investigation, I came to realize that what I really needed, this is all glued down and done, but if you look at the notations that I've made and making some measurements, I've come to realize that I was off center. So what I've done to get back on track is I've recut and redesigned so that now, see how that new center line is now there. So now I'm going back into the center and building out my cross, which is dead center of the whole piece. And now that I've reestablished a new center line, I've changed a little bit of the colors of the cross and made it darker. And we're going to cut a nice border to go around the cross. We're going to cut some little tiny pieces of the cross. Now I'm going to scoop this back here just a little bit. Let's see if that's a better view there. That might be a little bit better view. If y'all want a closer up view, just speak up in the chat and we'll pull the camera down and let you get a close look at some details if you're needing to. But right now, I had to put away all the stuff that I made to take my thumbnail with. Oh, you're right. But lives in there better. And this goes down here. This goes in here. That I'm kind of actually using. This doesn't need to be in here. Okay. Now I think we're ready to, we've regrouped and we're ready to get back into the grind. Like I said, this was a little bit of an asymmetrical emergency because I discovered that my center line was mismeasured or mismarked on the pattern, and I never noticed it till now. So what I've done, because I've already cut this background out in these strips that fill in these fine lines on the pattern, and there's really no way I don't have another piece of that glass, and I'm not going to start over. So what I did was I figured out my new center, and I wanted to change the color of the cross anyways. We went from this lighter color to this darker color. Now this is going to be the border of the cross, and the darker is the center. So I went ahead and recut that and established a new center line right down the middle of that cross for a visual reference for myself. And now I'm ready to move on to putting it all together. So far, we've got this much completed. And if you want to see it in the light, I'm taking it in here. I'm hand washing my wool socks for my next adventure. But here it is in the light so far. And we got a lot of work to do. And that eagle does look pretty dim. But it's really going to show up nicely once I get all these spaces filled in around here. So give me just 1 second. Let's put this off to the side. And then we'll get some glass cut and fitted to the pattern. And then we're going to have to take that piece and painstakingly go around some areas with a razor knife and an X-Acto blade. And we'll get a bunch of that first round of glue, get it cleaned off real good. And then we'll be able to get to gluing some more down. So, like I say, welcome, buddy, here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you stopping by. Oops, that's not going to work either. I think next time I will go vertical, but we're horizontal today, and that's just all there is to it. If you want to see something better, just let me know in the chat, and we'll bring the camera closer down to the table. So, I get a little bit overwhelmed. I recognized this last night. I was working ahead, and I thought I'd get way ahead and be ready to go live today with a really nice progress. And I got a lot done. But this was a major setback. It cost me a couple of hours of my time. And then, you know, when I had to walk to the store today, and I've been kind of taking it easy because I've been burning the candle at both ends and projects and all kinds of fun stuff lately. So today's a nice day to just kind of slow it down. And all I really want to do is finish cutting this cross out. And basically it'll be, once I get this phase done, I will be completely past and have corrected the asymmetrical mistake. In fact, it already is corrected, but now I just need to implement the solution, and I've got a good start on that. So we're going to go ahead and continue on and start cutting some of these other pieces down in here, because it's all got to get cut. It's all got to get cut. Yep, it is what it is. Whoa. My hand kind of slipped a little bit on that. That was kind of funky. But that's alright. I really only needed this little short piece. And at this point, I'm just dealing with straight lines. So I'm cutting the glass, looking right through with the paper without a pattern. I'm just tracing off what's next. Let's see here. We got that. Let's see, how does that piece transit? And then, because we are making new pattern pieces and we've made some changes, what you want to do is go ahead and put a magic marker line where the new piece is, right? So now you're not going to get confused as to whether that's a piece that you need or not. So we're back onto the pattern here, and we'll have this little mistake corrected real soon. Uh-oh. Okay, that just goes down in that line there. Okay. Now I'm back on track. The pieces are getting smaller and smaller as we go. And I'm really liking the way it's coming together. And some of the items, I still am going to get 99% of this done before I make a final choice on a couple of other colors. Because I want to see it together in the light. And I want to be able to make a really good, because I have plenty of good colors that match this palette. And so I have my basic palette is already chosen, and it is what it is. But once I get all this together, then I can hold some other colors up in the window and make some comparisons and see what I'm liking. Oops. And then that does go through there, doesn't it? Oh, I forgot a line. That might already be scored. I better double check. Nope. Oh, yep, it was. Alright, now I got glass all over my table. Yeehaw. Alright, that should be just fine. Yeah. Just buzz that down on the grinder a little bit later. That should be fine. We'll move on to this next piece down here. There. No stray edges on that piece there. Nothing to line the edges up with. Let's try this one. Okay. Now we got that lined up. Alright. I need to get a better lamp in here. Need a lamp. I need to get some better lighting situation going on. Okay, then we got a new line we'll add on here. That goes straight across. And that just leaves a little tiny triangle that I'll fill in later. So we have 90% of that cut out. Let's see, and then that's red. And then this would be, okay, so I need this one. That one's not cut out already. Alright. So I want to keep these together as much as possible. But you got to get to the pattern. Now we'll start back over here, line that straight line up onto that line. Draw a line all the way across there. Oops. And let me redo that one. And I'm not sure. We're going to double check on the actual window. I think so. I think that'll be okay. Looks to me like it could be a lot better. Let me double check that. Okay, that'll get me in the ballpark so I can grind it down again. And we'll just cut it kind of small. And we won't have to do a whole lot of grinding at all. It should be just fine. But I'll just leave just enough meat on the edges. And I mean just barely. Enough to where it'll be easy to fit into place in the next phase of production here. That rounded tip off. Okay. Okay, that's looking good. See, that goes over there. So that leaves me with, honestly, I should be restacking these in here. That's on the W. That's on the W. 1 minute. We're gonna get all this mess out of the way now that I've figured my problem out, and now we can move on because we have a lot of detail. We're really getting into the nitty-gritty of getting this project it's about to all just come together real fast. And this is kind of like that the slow intermission part, the 7th inning stretch. We've made some changes, we've corrected our mistakes, we've cut some new colors of glass, and we're just kind of regrouping and reincorporating from that. So I appreciate you sticking with me as I'm thinking about the process in my head as we go and as we talk. So I'm probably a little bit quieter today because, like I said, this is that stage in the project where it's all about to come together. And me and my brain, the way I work, this is the most chaotic part. But very, very soon, in a couple of hours here, I'll have this all reined in, and it won't feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew. Remember eating the elephant one bite at a time, right? So stick with me, and then what we're getting ready to do here in just a few minutes, I'm going to teach y'all how to make perfectly parallel straight lines using a glass gauge. And you can repeat the same size over and over and over. You don't have to keep remeasuring it. You don't need to make a template. Right here, I'm going to teach y'all how to do some really simple, really easy gauge cutting. And it's great for practicing cutting glass because it's all just straight lines. And basically here, I'm done with all the curved lines. The letters are all cut out and glued down. They're really, the only thing left with curves in it are the numbers 13, and it's 99% already cut and almost ready to go. So I don't even have many curves left. Everything else in this project is gonna be about, like I said, once we fixed our symmetry, everything in this project is going to be about keeping those lines straight and sticking with the lines on the pattern and remembering the changes that we made so I don't start building it wrong in the next step, which would be madness. So, okay. So I want that one next. There's a little triangle right here. So we'll cut this little triangle off. And then we'll have completed cutting this cross out almost. And that's actually what the gauge cutting is for. We're going to cut that little border that goes all the way around the cross, and it'll be a really nice accent to the whole project. And I may have made that a little bit large. No, that looks good. I like that. I like that a lot. So we got that there. That might have to be 2 pieces. Okay, so now we're down, and I've got that piece over to there. I guess what I need now is this piece. Okay. And oh, hold up now. Yeah, I want that coming right off the tail. Ooh, but it doesn't go all the way across. I think I may have just made a mistake there. Let me see how that lines up. That may have messed me up. Because that, oh, right there at the tail. Right there at the tail. Well, I guess. Okay, I can make that work. Fixed it. Well, as long as I can break that off. Alright, now let's see what we're looking at. Flipped it over. Okay, now it goes all the way across. That works. Alright, and we'll clip in for the bird. Cut away that little tiny piece there. So it's painstaking. I'm cutting little teeny tiny pieces. And I really enjoy doing this, but I know a lot of people wouldn't. Alright, so that goes there. Alright. Okay, so that goes there. Oh, that is that one. Okay, just making sure I got my line right. Line that up. Right there. Ah, alright, I just lost sight of what I was doing there. Alright, let's try that again. That's gotta go all the way up. I'm gonna cut this one long because it's a little fuzzy on exactly where that's landing. I'm gonna assume it goes all the way over. And I'll cut that off to fit the width. See, I kind of enjoy this. I'm just winging it now. Okay. Because like I said, I wanted to cut, once I get my main pattern established, I like to cut things in halves and thirds and fourths and make smaller pieces. Because when it comes to making a mosaic piece, you really want hundreds and as many tiny pieces. Now, not so many and so tiny that they disappear in the grout lines, but you want a lot of fine detail. You want it to look really crazy. You know, like, why would anybody do that? That's what I like about it. So I think I've got my choice here. I can do a couple different things. I'm going to come up this way, and then that's that piece there. Uh-oh. No, that's right. That's okay. Okay, we did that right. And then that leaves, we need to draw that line on there since we just made a new pattern piece. and it's just a line connected from there to there. So we've got that, that, and we've got that lower corner. I guess this is the only one that's left. Yeehaw. I think this might be it. Okay, I think this is the last piece for that. Get this all cut out. Then we'll get that gauge cut and set up. Hope I didn't just throw away the wrong piece. I'm known for doing that. Okay. Okay, so we got that. That goes up there. Ah, I see. Right. Okay. Well, I thought I had that figured out. Always got to look at stuff. I might have thrown the wrong piece back in there. Uh-oh. Alright, let's put this back over here. I've lost track again. Alright, that comes out of there. That's gotta be it there, but... Ah. There it is. It got flipped over upside down. Okay. Like I said, folks, I hope you like building puzzles. Now I know what shape that piece is. Okay. Got that. Let's make sure we got all the cross pieces in here now. I think we do. All the rest of that is background. We got that, we got that, that. I think we're ready to go on to the next phase, folks. Getting exciting. Okay. So there's no more other, that's all W. Okay. I'm just making sure I don't have any tiny pieces I need to go back and fill in. So now, if you want to take a look, we've recut that cross and we've organized it in a different way. And now if you look real close, there's a tiny little 1/4 inch border running all the way around each side of the cross. That's what we're going to cut next. And we're going to show you how to do some really neat gauge cutting. And what that is go to the hardware store, you get you a little rod, and you get some of these ring collars with it. You can get a thumb screw to put in it. And I like to have one on each end so I can cut two different sizes, and I can leave these set, and I know which is what during any given project. So, and how you set these up to use is real simple and real easy. So, let me make sure I'm on the right order. Okay, so I know that I want that border around that cross exactly at this width. And so there's a whole bunch of them. And now I'm going to show you how to cut a whole bunch of straight lines and make sure you get a whole bunch of the exact parallel pieces. So the first thing you do, and this will maybe I'll bring it down on the table for this. It's kind of a little detail that's interesting. Let's see. I should have done my video in the other direction, huh? But that's okay. So what you want to do, you're going to be cutting. So this is the border going around the cross. And we want to cut a bunch of tiny little strips about this wide. And we want to make sure that they're all the same. And this is how you go about doing that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to set your glass cutting edge right there on the edge. And then what you want to do, unscrew your little thumb tab. Unscrew your little thumb tab. Now, the trick to this, hold on, let me just get this out of the way real quick. Just 1 second, we'll get you all a better view here. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, loosen your thumb screw up and slide your piece of glass all the way to the edge of your cutting square. So if you look, the width of this glass cutter, and you see how there's a wheel in the middle, so you want the size of your piece. Scoot this ring collar all the way up till it touches the piece of glass. And then you want to, oops, where'd it go? Then you want to add on half of the width up to that metal wheel. So we'll add on, and it's easier just to put your glass cutter down and line it up with the edge of the glass. And then you pull that into place. That's kind of in my way. Let me reset that a little. Okay. So what you want to do is line that up to where your glass cutter is along the edge of the cutting square, and you let that wheel line right up with that edge of the piece of glass. So now you know that you will get the exact piece of glass that you need every single time. So now I'll show you what that looks like in real time. And you can, and so what I'll do to make sure that I've got my gauge set properly, I'll grab a piece of scrap glass, and then all you want to do is you make sure the bottom is the same distance right there, the same distance to the end of your nub, and take a couple measurements. And then now you know that this is perfectly square all the way along. Now watch now. So now we have a piece of glass that's almost exactly the same size as this. I want to shrink it down just a hair more. It's not quite right yet. So we're gonna just move that forward a little bit. And then I'm gonna check it because I think I'm pretty close right there to where I want. Let's see how we're looking now. That looks like about the size of my little border. There we go. Now we have an exact measurement where we can reproduce this width over and over and over again without any measurements, as long as you leave that thumb screw tightened down. So now that I've checked it and I like the way it looks, let's see my long piece. Okay, that'll be enough to cut. So now I'm going to put this down, and this is the actual piece of glass that I'm using. And like I say, all you got to do, get y'all a real good view. Nope. So in gauge cutting, all you got to do is slide this up to your glass square until it stops, and you can check the bottom, you can check the middle, you can check the top, and you can really make certain that your piece of glass is going to be exactly that same width each time. Okay. That's what we're looking for right there. So I'm going to cut a few more of those out. In fact, that might be a little bit wide. No, that's about right. But I think I want that to be a bit of a finer line. So I'm going to make another micro adjustment. And then let me look at this again. I better get a piece of squared off glass. Let me look at this size. It was matching the red glass, but I'm making some changes, and I think I want that to be just a little bit daintier. Let's see how we're liking that. Ooh, that's a much better, nice thin line as compared, and this is thin too, but that's smaller by about 1/16 of an inch. It's real close to the same, but I like that size there. We're going to roll with that. Okay. Now put our scraps out of the way, and we're ready to rock and roll, and we'll cut a whole bunch of these up real quick. And then we can wrap them around that cross, and that gives us a whole nother section to start gluing stuff down. And what I need to do before I do that, tonight's gonna be a sit around in front of the TV and clean and polish and get all the extra glue and epoxy. Clean that project up real nicely so I can start gluing the rest of this down, make sure I got all the fingerprints off of everything, you know, all that stuff. So when you're doing this, you know, it's the first thing you learn in glass cutting is holding that cutter perfectly perpendicular to the surface of the table. And I'm really bad for leaning it just slightly one way or the other. And what that's going to cause in your parallel lines, you're going to have a little flare out maybe at the bottom where you start in and then straighten out, even though, you know, they're just little tiny micro changes that can cause these kind of things. And so I always cut extra strips, and I always cut them longer than I need, because then I can cut that little flared end off if I've been a lazy bad boy cutter and not paying attention. But if you're pressing perfectly straight up and down, perpendicular to the table, you will have cleaner breaks, less grinding, and you'll have just a lot better cuts and overall look of your whole project. So let me see. So I got that, one for there, one for there, one for there, one for there, one for there. Okay, I think I have enough of those cut. That's good. So we'll set these aside, and we've got this in case something happens. And there's more of that glass, but I'm really excited to get the rest of this glass cut because I'm going to be able to put it up in the window and choose a couple of really nice accent colors that I'm looking forward to. Let me adjust that just a little better. All right. So now we're going to shuffle some stuff around. That stuff's just all in the way, just a bunch of glass scraps now, and that's okay. All right, so we got that. Oh, I'm the headless glazer. Yeah, I think next time I will do the straight up and down. See, I still don't work good, does it? Sorry, folks. I'm indecisive today. I thought I would try to go horizontal, but it doesn't work good enough. I'd have to put the camera way back there to show everything, really. Okay. So we have that. We have these scraps that we really don't need. We're going to be dealing with that later. And these are all scraps. Just getting rid of some of this mess before we hit the next phase here. Coffee for everybody. Okay. So what we want to do now, going around the edge of this cross, I want to miter 45-degree angles in each one of those corners, and that'll make it look real nice and sharp. So now that we've got our strips cut, I'm just going to work my way around, and you know, you start off real easy with that. Get it down a little bit, and that's real easy because you just take one and I'm not even using a miter gauge or nothing. I'm just guesstimating that that's a nice 45-degree angle. So I'm sure that'll be just fine for a 45-degree angle on an 1/8 inch width, 1/4 inch width, pardon me. So we'll get that. My coffee's getting warm. 1 second. All right, guys. I'm going to take a little bit of a YouTuber break. I've got some nice background music that I programmed and played and recorded the other day. That should go real nice. Oops. Oops. 1 second. Okay, guys, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, guys. So, all we really need to do right now is we need to cut this nice little border around the cross, and then we're gonna have to really take the stuff that's done, I need to really clean this up good and get all the magic marker off of it. And there's a lot of glue that I need to pick off of there. Here's what it looks like on the back. Same thing, it's glass. So at any rate, we'll get this all cleaned up, and then I'll be gluing these down. I'll have all this section done and epoxied onto here the next time you see me. And probably some of the lettering I need to readjust and scoot the basketball over about 1/4 of an inch, the same way that we scooted the crossover. And that gives me, I've got a bunch of writings and lines and notes on here on how I've shifted stuff. And so now I'm back to where everything from the center line outward is now symmetrical again. So, once again, Glazers 1, Windows 0. It tried to defeat me with math, but I fixed it with proportionality and measurements and a new color. How do you like that, math? All right, guys, thank you so much for being here today. You have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you get busy and get a lot of stuff done. Spring is here. We are well knee deep into kayaking season. We got a few more days of storms, and we're going to be doing some live streaming for the lake. So stick with me as we wrap up this project. We'll build a frame, do a couple other things, and 100 million other projects, and we're going to do half of them with our feet wet. So stay with me. We'll see y'all real soon.